beautiful, diverse. A country that is blessed with abundance on every horizon. Mountainous deep, thirsty with deserts, buried under snows. All of this is our America. From east to west, it takes 5 hours for the sun to find its way over America. And this journey from above lets the morning lead the way. I lift my lamp beside the golden door, it says on the Statue of Liberty. Here is the golden door, New York City. York City. Ring a bell in distant corners of the world. Far from America, the litany of buzzwords is familiar. Broadway, Wall Street, Times Square, the Chrysler and Empire State Buildings, Central Park. As the cliche goes, it's the city that never sleeps. New York moves to its own rhythm, its own beat, and the pace never stops, even under the cover of darkness. Morning in Philadelphia. Crew boats share the river with a working tug. In the heart of the city, golden sunlight spills across the same streets that Ben Franklin knew back in 1776. The year a young Tom Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. No wonder William Penn stands so tall in bronze above his city. Never did a man's concept for a colony blossom so extravagantly as here in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. Statesman Henry Adams wrote, "Had New England, New York, and Virginia been swept out of existence in 1800, democracy could have better spared them all than have lost Pennsylvania." Philadelphia was our country's capital at the time of the Declaration. But the national government that finally rose to implement our new independence found a home about 100 miles away on another river, the Potomac. It was Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was carefully planned to house the seat of a daring experiment, a democracy run by laws based on a written constitution. In D.C.'s early days, the federal government was small. The capital remained a mere town. But as our nation built its memorials to brave deeds and gained its heroes and heroines, the little southern town rose to lead a great nation to prosperity. Through times of peace and times when service and sacrifice were required to preserve America's freedom and democracy. Each year, millions of Americans come to Washington, D.C. to stand silently beside exquisite monuments, to gaze upon the great symbols of democracy for the world. 200 years ago, this land was thick with wild grasses, oak and elm, and abundant game. It was the sacred hunting grounds of the American Indian. The strangers called pioneers trespassed and lay claim to the earth, a chapter in American history still unresolved in parts. But to the pioneers, this soil was their golden hope of progress and betterment. They did not worship the ground, but they did cultivate it and care for it and create a garden for an entire nation. America's heartland. This farm country remains one of the nation's richest commodities. It stretches out like a giant checkerboard, each square 640 acres, or 1 square mile. And today, a single farmer can sow, fertilize, and reap entire square miles at a time, a monstrous productivity that feeds the world. Morning in Chicago. Carl Sandburg once described this city as a stormy, husky, brawling city of big shoulders, hog butcher for the world. That was in 1916. Chicago has outgrown its brawling image and transformed into a mighty Midwestern city. Once known as America's freight handler, its trains now transport tens of thousands of commuters each day. And though the greater Chicago area retains some of its industrial strength, the city's wealth is now showered on soaring buildings, museums, galleries, and parks, creating one of the most striking city profiles in the nation today. Chicago is America's kind of town. part of Chicago's charm can be measured 4 beats to bar, 12 bars long. It's a simple progression called the blues. And Chicago is home to some of the best players in the world. In the words of one piano player, Memphis Slim, all the joints in Chicago, man, they really rock. They rock all day and all night, and they never stop. That's why I live in Chicago, so I can have a good time. You feel mighty free and easy and comfortable on a raft, said Huckleberry Finn. His creator, Mark Twain, knew the mighty Mississippi in all its varying moods. Today's rivermen are a bit busier than Huck Finn. Their rafts, with thousands of tons of cargo, could be measured by the acre. The Mississippi River is America's #1 highway, traveling between 3 and 6 miles an hour. There's only one rapids to skirt, but knowing the channels and navigating still can be a chore. One traveler noted, the current is right there, ready to ruin your life. St. Louis, gateway to the west, framed by its gleaming arch. The city is a natural crossroads, where the Missouri's muddy waters join the Mississippi and drift on down to New Orleans and the Gulf. In the early 1800s, nearly all westward trucks started from right here. And if the arch had been standing in 1802, Lewis and Clark themselves might well have passed right under it. Texas always will be a giant among states, in size, in money, talk, politics, in the hearts and the hopes of its outgoing people. If you look at a map of America, Texas forms a fifth corner of the country and stakes out its own unique identity. It stands for crops, cattle, oil, air, and space, the Dallas Cowboys, and a few real ones, too. The Lone Star State. Plenty of wide-open spaces for cattle, cotton, and corn. It's some of the flattest frontier in the West, stretching nearly 700 miles from border to border. As an old cowboy song goes about riding the range, the sun done rise and the sun done set, and here we is in Texas yet. San Antonio, a city steeped in rich Spanish and Mexican traditions. The San Antonio River meanders through the heart of town. Mariachi music often fills the air. Remember the Alamo, Sam Houston cried to rally his troops to independence from Mexico. Here, the Alamo still is cherished today, along with Texas's other Spanish missions. Galveston became a huge port after the discovery of oil turned Texas upside down nearly a century ago. Wildcatters and dirt farmers became millionaires overnight, and sleepy truck-stop towns gave way to ultra-modern cities like Houston. Just up the road from Houston is another spread, not too big, only about 32 acres. They call it downtown Dallas, the Big D. With all its glitz, it likes to think of itself as the ideal American city. And maybe it is. It grew from this soil because people here believed in the future, reached for it, risked all for it. And they fully deserve all they've gained of it. Dallas, a great city in a great state. We all could stand to do a little bragging about Texas. Even today, the approach to the Front Range of the Rockies is a daunting sight. To the early wagon trains making their way across the Great Plains, the steady upward climb tested the soul. Many did not go further. Others eventually were able to make their way through the mountains and across the Continental Divide. One major route threaded through the American Southwest and passed by a desert plateau so deeply cut with canyons, so jumbled with buttes and pinnacles of eroded rock, that it defied careful exploration until this century. This red rock country is another world. Gone are trees and grass, for here water is scarce. Yet millions of years ago, broad inland seas formed this land, first lying on it until the earth heaved upward, then gnawing through the rock to form deep canyons, buttes, and tall monoliths, bridges and arches, all bones of the earth's skeleton. As mysterious as the landscape are the people here. tall, handsome Navajos, Hopis and Zunis, and above all, the ghosts of the Anasazi, the ancient ones, who built their villages in cliffside caverns, farmed the green bottomlands 1,000 years ago, then were driven away by drought. Still, this country always has been, always will be a sacred place. California has meant so much to so many Americans. First, it was the legend of El Dorado, the promise of gold at the end of the long trail that drew people here. But it was California's natural wonders that filled with awe the earliest arrivals. Scenery in a rugged scale and abundance beyond imagination. Sunrise on the Golden Gate, a cherished American emblem, a vision for world travelers, a sight which once seen is never forgotten. fog often wraps it, concealing like a stage curtain the city that lies behind it. In America, if there is one place to be found, to be discovered, it's right here. La La Land, L.A. Where in America would commuters use a float plane instead of an automobile? Where they fly to work over pristine scenery instead of uncrowded roadways flanked by endless suburbs? Where? Alaska. Just another of our United States, the 49th to be exact. Coastal fishing villages, farmland basking in the midnight sun, offshore oil rigs, freighters and tankers, all give evidence of Alaska's natural wealth. Hard to believe that in 1867, the United States bought it from Russia for under 2 cents an acre. frozen rivers meet the sea and crumble into gigantic shards of clean blue ice. A scene that can be witnessed every day in Alaska. It's the end of a long downhill progression that begins hundreds of miles away in Alaska's mountainous interior, the most remote, most untraveled terrain in all America. Denali, the Indians call it, the Great One. At 20,320 feet, McKinley is North America's highest peak. In 1913, the first person to conquer it, Hudson Stuck, described his view from the summit like looking out of the very windows of heaven. Alaska is bigger than the nations of France, Germany, Austria, and Italy combined, with a population about half that of Rhode Island. America's wide-open spaces used to be its prairie states like North Dakota and Nebraska. Here, they could be swallowed whole. Hawaii, formed by volcanoes in the depths of the Pacific. America's newest state is still being born today. On the Big Island, Kilauea erupts, billowing ash and steam. Superheated lava slithers downhill and adds a few cubic feet to the bulk of our 50th state. In Hawaii, water is everything. A deity that drenches ferns, palms, the fragrant blossoms that form leis. Water irrigates the acres of pineapple, cane, and coffee, laps on small, secret beaches. Water carves the very shape of the islands, forms endless blue horizons in every direction. Morning in Iowa, the very heart of America, like a Norman Rockwell painting. The school bus is just as yellow in Kauai as in Calais, Maine, 5,000 miles apart, from one end of the United States to the other. How does each day begin in America? It may stir us to get the kids to school, stack wood against the farmhouse for the coming winter, commute to the city for another day of work. The rituals are as varied as the land itself. Americans are a diverse and caring people, and wherever we live, as the new day lights our country, it also illuminates our tasks, our ideals, our hopes, our plans for this incredible land, the place we call home, America.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious sky.